Find our seat. And now
Everyone, I'd like to get your attention, whether you are inside or outside. Hopefully you have a laugh. I'm Carlene Wilson-Mitchell, the Director of the Literacy Education Program at Toronto Metropolitan University, and I would like to toast our graduates who are about to enter literacy as their career, as their calling, as their profession. Our graduates, here, here. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start our program tonight. We're running a little bit late, and I do know that Dean Harris is here, as well as Associate Dean Nadia, and they will have to leave very shortly. So I want to just be respectful to them. We have a lot packed for tonight, and eating and enjoying each other's company is going to be involved as well. And of course, we have our honored guest, Gutchie Cook, and we want to give her enough time to be able to speak. First of all, I would like to invite Karis, our Dean of the Faculty of Community Services, to come up and to provide a land acknowledgement. And this is a very special year for us. It is the year where we changed our name to show respect and to acknowledge the trauma and to mitigate some of the wrongs that have been done in the past by our namesake. So we are very grateful to have you here. Thank you, Karis.
Thank you, Colleen. First of all, I want to just echo the congratulations to everybody. So I'm very happy to spend a few minutes with you. But it is indeed on any day, but particularly on National Indigenous Peoples Day, quite something to think about acknowledging the land that we stand on. Because you were students at Toronto Met, you probably heard the University's land acknowledgement many times. And I don't want to repeat it again. Instead, I want to speak to sort of the way in which I myself, as an immigrant to this country, have come to learn about the many tensions and contradictions that exist when we benefit from land that our ancestors, and to some degree our complicity today, continues to steal. And so it is always with a little bit of trepidation that I say we honor this land, but I'm very conscious in honoring this land. We have much work to do to honor the people connected to this land, to honor the people who have walked this land for many, many centuries, for millennia. And words alone are not a form of honor. Actions are a much better form of honor. And actions that move us forward in ways that truly gets to the heart of the matter is are really what I needed at this point. So I will say that I acknowledge this land. I'm grateful to be able to stand on it. I was not invited to stand on it. I just showed up. I suspect that is true for many. And I think it is therefore really important that we at least have sufficient humility to understand that we are walking contradictions in our relations with people who really know how to honor and be with this land. I also just, I think this is such an incredible moment. From now on, Dr. Cook. It's, you know, that in and of itself, I think, is an incredible honor. I just had a crash course in what you have meant to the midwifery profession, what you have meant to women's health, what you have meant to so many people and so many communities. And, you know, that is phenomenal. It's an honor to be with you and to share this space with you. Thank you. Well, the students, I just quickly wanted, well, you're not students anymore, you're now like serious pros. I just want to say, way to go. That's really amazing. I wish you all the best. And very importantly, to all the faculty members and staff of the midwifery education program, you really rock. So let me just say that it's quite a special thing. So thank you for having me for a few minutes.
Appreciate Kara so much. She has our back. I'm very grateful that we're in a university that supports us and believes in midwifery. We've caught half the babies here anyway. So I'd love to have the two students who have agreed to come and speak to us. Maria was unable to be here tonight, but Maha and yes, please, and Bruna are going to be coming up to speak to us and just to address their peers, their fellow graduates. Who wants to come first? Bruna? Yes, we can go alphabetically. That's good.
For driving this course ahead and respecting us, every student here, and guiding us to get today. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Bruna Colcolas. I am here today to speak in my name and also in the name of my colleagues that's finishing this program with me. This program is hard, but has also a lot of moments of joy. And so I made this speech that I'm gonna read. To be accepted in this program, we went through a very selective process, which involved a curriculum evaluation and one interview process with 10 different people, asking all kinds of questions for us. And if you were good enough, you would receive a letter of acceptance. And all of us got it. If you, then don't worry, because if you are accepted, there was 4 years ahead of you, filled with assignments, filled of moments to cry, filled of moments of joy. So moments that you thought you could not keep going, and moments that you felt that you could keep going because we were special and we had colleagues that was really helping us all the way. So when I was feeling that I was tired, that I could not keep going, I had many midwifery friends telling me, we can, just one assignment more, Bruna, just one more. And we made it. So this morning I got a message from my friends and they could not believe it. And it's not just, it's a whole community finishing midwifery together. So I'm so grateful for the class that I joined. And I'm so grateful for all the love and respect and dedication from all my colleagues and from the whole midwifery program, because they cried when we cried and they took our backs when we needed. And I'm gonna tell the truth, it's hard because we went from many different places to do like our the curriculum part. So sometimes with nursing and sometimes it's with a lactation consultant, and we were learning and need to relearning and delete what we learn and learn again. And then we need to be good. All the time we need to be good and prove ourselves to be here today. So we are warriors. Yes. Actually, we are midwives. If I have like a piece of device, I would say I don't know how to provide I don't know. I know in the new register it's going to bring a lot of challenges, And those challenges is gonna be different for everyone. Maybe for some it's gonna be about clinical skills. For other people, it's more like people relations. And I know every one of us is gonna go through a lot. But you know what? Like everyone's gonna make mistake. And if you're gonna make mistake because we are trying. People that don't try, they don't make mistakes because they don't go through the path. So we needed to, every time we fall, we just need to stand up and say, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm gonna do better because I know I can do better. So in this way, like in 10 years, you're gonna look at each other, you're gonna say, we made it, and you're badass midwives.
Mama, please come up. Marie sends her regrets. An emergency came up today. She really wanted to be here. Thank you, Mama.
Carlene. So when Carlene asked me to speak today, her request was that I inspire my colleagues for 5 to 7 minutes, which I thought was a little bit funny, fresh out of senior year, because I think I'm in good company when I say that senior year has its challenges. For me, I had 6 weeks left of clerkship and ended up having to restart at a new practice, which was not fun. But when I look back, I find myself realizing that the community that carried me through and got me here is actually bursting at the seams with hope and perseverance and inspiration. So I'm going to share some stories of 3 people who really contributed to getting me here today. The first person is Carolyn Scott. So Carolyn Scott was my very first preceptor in normal childbearing. She was also my very last preceptor because when I was looking for a preceptor, she very generously took me back. So how's that for continuity of care? Carolyn's been a midwife for 20 years, and she is the person in the room who's most well-read on all of the latest research. She's always eager to learn. She made me feel really welcomed as her student. And overall, she is a person who, no matter how idle, ambitious all of my midwifery dreams are, she can be trusted with those to support me. So if you have a Carolyn in your life, thank them. And if you don't have a Carolyn in your life, I hope you can be that for someone else. The second midwife whose wisdom I want to share with you is Sabina Fella. So Sabina was my post-COVID MC preceptor at Riverdale, my unlikely friend and my soul sister. When I told Sabina that I was struggling with taking time off, that I had birth FOMO, and I felt like I was disappointing clients when I couldn't make it to their births, she shared some very primary care midwife words of wisdom with me. And what she said was that if I'd done my job right prenatally, it didn't matter if I was there for the birth. I would have already empowered the person to bring out that strength in themselves. She told me that if the client was depending on our presence at that birth, we had failed them. I held these words really close when I had to start over and lose all my clients in clerkship, hoping I'd done right by them. So if you have a Sabina in your life, I hope you're able to thank them. And if you're not that person, if you don't have someone who holds space for you and brings out the strength in you that you didn't know you had, I hope you can be that for someone else. The last person is here with us tonight. It's Rebecca Crone, right over there. Rebecca was my main preceptor through senior year. She's been my cheerleader, my teacher, and my friend. She taught me how to practice with integrity and how to actually do this work when I'm not always going to have the answers. When I felt like giving up, she believed in me even when I didn't feel like I could believe in myself. She has always been there reminding me that we can do hard things and is the first to practice what she preaches. Even though it made a bad situation worse for her, she still stood up for me. She reminded me of the power of betting on yourself as we both started over. So if you have a Rebecca in your life, someone who dragged you across the finish line, reminded you that you can do hard things and had so much faith in you that even you were convinced to bet on yourself, I hope you can thank them. And if you don't, I hope you can be that person for someone else. It takes a village to raise a midwife. And I hope you've seen aspects of yours reflected in stories of mine today. I hope you celebrate this huge milestone with them. So here's to the long nights where the rhythm of creedal heart rates served as the metronome to which we moved, cared, held space, and learned. the beat to which we cried out of exhaustion and doubt in supply rooms, and then put our own exhaustion and doubt away to go support someone through theirs. As midwives, we get the privilege of witnessing birthers tap into their deepest strength and find the courage to raise to the challenge of bringing new life into this world. As midwifery students, we carried that privilege and we provided that clinical care, and we did it for free. Well, we actually paid to do it. So if you're like me and you're graduating with a mountain of student debt that you now face paying back, and you're looking desperately for the will to find some strength to practice, I hope you can take some inspiration from the Carolyns and Sabinas and Rebeccas in your life. So whether you go on to be a midwife for 4 days or 40 years, I hope you can look back and be proud of yourself for rising to the challenge time and again. I hope, like Carolyn, you never lose your love for learning and bettering your practice, and that you show kindness to the midwives you go on to teach. I hope, like Sabina, you remember that midwifery often has very little to do with the midwife and everything to do with the families that we serve. I hope that, like Rebecca, if you ever find yourself undervalued or exploited, you find the courage to do the hard things, to bet on yourself again, like you did when you entered the MEP. I like to think that we have the chance now to shape our careers in ways that bring forward the parts of the midwives who inspired us. I dream of having clinical skills like Vicky, and the innovation of Carol Cameron, the advocacy of Monavi, the leadership of Shirley and Natalie and Elizabeth and Carlene. Whoever's work it is that moves you, I hope it sparks something in you that keeps bringing it forward. It's our turn now, so let's make them proud.
You're my heroes, and you can catch my grandbabies any day. I'd like to invite Mary to come. Dr. Mary Sharp is going to be announcing all the award winners that received awards and scholarships and grants this year.
Yes, it's a long list, but it's always such a pleasure. This first group of awards was provided by Judith Rachel Harris, who was so pleased with the attentive care from her midwives that she offered so many awards. And so for the Complications and Consultation Award, we have 3 winners: Leah Ambrose, Sheila Oda, IPMC Academic Excellence Award. There are 3 winners: Lydia, Shanuka, Pamela, Nicole. And the Program Completion Award is Maha. Yes, Maha. Parent Infant Award, Krista Mills, Marissa Toombs, Veronica Lee, Stephanie, Nicole Royer, Tamara Sanchez. And another group of awards was given by Murray Enkin, who was an obstetrician and researcher, and Eleanor Enkin, his wife, who were wonderful supporters of midwives for 50 years, 60 years. So the Equity and Inclusion Award goes to Yahin and Wasuta and Zoe. And the Academic Achievement Award goes to Elizabeth DeJong and Tamara. And the Social Justice Award goes to Lydia. And the Single Parent Soul Caregiver Award goes to Aaron and Joanna. And the 4th year Ryerson Award goes to Leah. Lots of awards here. And to Marissa. And the Equity and Midwifery Award goes to Trudy Penny and Fatima. And the Hamilton Award for BIPOC students goes to Zainab Salou and to Farah Shabib. And the Hamilton Award for Black students goes to Rachel Ayin. So congratulations.
Now I'm going to ask if Rachel Hung could come to the podium to do our slideshow. Rachel? Okay, we may have to change the order of occurrence. Is Rachel here? And I'm just not seeing her? Okay. We'll do that section with the slideshow later. Maybe I can ask Ellen to come and please introduce Gachi. So we have Ellen Blaze next, who is our Indigenous representative on the Association of Ontario Midwives, the AOM. So we're so grateful to have you here. Thank you, Ellen.
I'm here to introduce Gaji Cook tonight. It was such an honor, and thank you so much to those who asked. So dear Gaji, I am honored to be asked to introduce you this evening. Gaji Cook is one of the world's most inspirational leaders in reproductive justice and Indigenous health and midwifery on a global scale. She weaves together Indigenous knowledges that resonate on many levels, including everything from validating dreams about pregnancy to writing papers on environmental justice and PCBs in breast milk. Wherever Gaji moves, power moves with her. Her presence in any venue is simultaneously calming, but moves those around her to action. She leaves in her wake a beautiful, sparkling rainbow of colors and stars for others to pick up and create their own stories and plans to move forward. I remember a dream workshop Gaji facilitated. It was one of the most powerful workshops I have ever been to. She validated the language of dreams through bringing forward the voices of all the Indigenous women in the room as dream interpreters through their own recollection of collective memories and knowledge about the meaning and significance of Indigenous symbology. I also remember when Gaji once again showed her leadership skills in a very simple and powerful way. So we were all the NACO folks were in Quebec City. I think it was way back in 2008. And we were all sitting around and we were saying, well, should we form a national group or do we just like go off and do our own thing? And we don't know what to do. And there was so many of us sitting in the room and Gaji just stood up and she said, if we don't come together as a national organization, someone will do it for us and without us. So we were like that, we made the decision right there. So Gaji, you just seem, you can pull all that together and just move things forward in such a beautiful way. Gaji, before you come up to the stage, I want to share your poem with everyone here today. And in doing that, say from my heart to yours and to everyone in the room, you are the glittering morning star. And I wanted to share your poem tonight. And it was interesting because when you were up on the podium, you referred to the very same poem that was this afternoon. So Gaji says, I want to close with a prayer that we use in our medicine circle for healing and for blessing birth. Relax where you are and try to get comfortable, feeling your weight supported by Mother Earth. Take in a deep breath, breathing in the oxygen that is part of the sky and part of each of us too. Now remember, next time you look at the morning star, that morning star is you, glittering bright, and that's you, Gaji. I give thanks for peacefully you are born. I pray that peacefully your life will be ongoing because as I think of you clearly, I know you will always be loved. I could go on for many hours here, but I want to hand it over to Gaji to share with us, and we are all so fortunate to be here today to experience the one and only Gaji Cook.
You'll have to hold the microphone up because we are Zooming and YouTubing live. For folks who couldn't be here tonight, so they're watching online.
Well, hello, everyone on the other side of Zoom. And what a huge blessing in my life. This moment is to the graduates, how you're a dream come true. You're the fulfillment of vision of many, at least 75 previously practicing midwives in the province of Ontario. We situated in 3 different classes, and I was lucky enough to be in the class with Jay McGillivray, Christine Roy, many other heroines that I look at, Vicki Van Wagner, so many powerful women, Elsie Cressman, who taught us from her experience of being an English trained Mennonite midwife working on an island from the coast of Africa where there was no surgical theater for women whose babies were presenting breech. So she learned how to do external version. And her magic was to lay them down on the carpet of her home. Obstetricians would send their wives to her. And just from the feeling, the energies, the soothing of her thick old hands, what a privilege to be brought up to standards by the province of Ontario in the company of such brilliant women. So here we are, the midwifery education program, years after, and to see the room full of graduates today, to be present among you is such a great honor. At this point in my life, I took a lot of strength from recently looking at the National Aboriginal Council of Midwives core competencies that includes those Indigenous markers of how we are to be human in this world, to understand that our dreams are the language of our own spirit. And so in my community, I spent a lot of time as a little girl with my grandmother who delivered me in her big white iron bed in her farmhouse. And the stories that I heard from my relatives who were in attendance at my birth, and that birthing story carried me even into my menopause. I was delivered to a woman who was never supposed to have babies. She suffered the rheumatic heart disease from falling into the what do you call that, in the river, where the last rapids, the last natural rapids in the St. Lawrence River are at my mother's Mohawk community of Ganawage. And sledding into that, she fell and developed rheumatic fever at a time when there was no antibiotics. And her mother, who had had 3 sets of twins born at home, lost them all to what they call blue baby syndrome, really guarded my mother. But my father, a Mohawk man from Upper met her at a dance in Montreal with his cousin and my mother's cousin. My father told his cousin Sullivan, look, this is the woman I'm going to marry. And out of pure love, she gave birth to 4 of us. And I was the 4th one born at home. And when I was born, they put me in a basket next to my mother because they worried more about her. I was a healthy baby. But an hour later, circling back to me, they uncovered me and saw I was bleeding from the cord stump. And we all know that that's a marker for vitamin K, when vitamin K shots didn't exist. So she took a needle and thread, having had 18 children of her own at home, delivered by her mother, who was a midwife, and sewed up my belly button. So that as I was growing up in my mother's care, because my mother was often hospitalized, I slept a curtain away from my grandmother in a little cot. And my cousins would tease me, "You better not make grandma mad, she's going to take her thread back." And so this consciousness of something of her physically embodied in me stayed with me through my childhood on her farm, seeing calves be born, seeing animals everywhere, because that's obstetrics, the sheep model, is the reason we have the specialty. So in some of the best midwifery lectures I've ever attended were in Cornell's vet school. So the humanity part of the work that we do, keeping in mind the comments that were just shared with us, how difficult a path. It's more difficult a path when you don't have a midwifery education program. You have to design your own training. As I did, connecting with obstetricians who were friends, going to ceremonies, to elders who had memory of birth in the family and in the home, and one such elder in Akwesasne who had 12 children, 3 of which she gave birth to holding on to the kitchen doorknob and giving birth all by herself. I grew up in a world where such stories were alive, and I was the only one asking. One woman was attached to this idea of the significance of the dream, had given birth in the hospital, and of course then many women had preeclampsia. So in the hospital giving birth, she was clinically dead. And in that moment, she went to the sky world and entered a room, and 12 men dressed in old style clothing, headdress, leather, were seated at the table. And when she came in the room, they all stood up and looked at her and said, "You're not supposed to be here. But since you are, we're going to give you the gift of seeing." This is a cultural actor that still survives in the Six Nations communities. When you have a powerful dream, you go to a seer who will interpret the dream and tell you what ceremonies you need to have to return you to balance. So we call these sky beings, these authoritative men, the sky beings, and you can tell from the law, it's the males. And she came back to her body, and she and her baby lived. And when she came home to Akwesasne, because everyone at that time, there's a whole generation had given birth in the hospital, because public health nurses came onto the reservation and said, "If you don't go to the hospital, we'll take your baby." So she was a bit nervous about this new skill she had, because back in the 30s and 40s, they had a name for that, and it wasn't a good name, and it could cause a stigma that wasn't good for you. But people who knew the traditional ways kept coming to her, and she served the people like that. And so this idea of situating dreams inside of core competencies of Indigenous midwifery isn't just the individual, it's the community. Because once you have the prescriptions of the ceremonies, maybe you need a false-based dance. Maybe you need to visit the Otter Society. Maybe the prescription is a dew-eagle ceremony because you're alone in the world and you need to have a female relative to accompany you. And so I've sat in on these kinds of ceremonies that were subsequent to the interpretation of the mother's dreams. And so here we are, you're the fulfillment of a dream. And there's so much power in such a moment as this. We're standing at a doorway, a threshold, all that sacrifice that you made, that we all make, even in whatever world we inhabit, we carry worlds within us. So there's knowledge in our indigenous communities that survives because there's this concept of sitting apart. And you see it in our creation story. They'll take a cohort and keep them apart from the rest of the people, to train them and raise them in a certain intentional way. You see that even in the stories of truth and reconciliation. One story, a woman said, when I was a little girl, my grandfather taught me to dive into a hay pile out in the field. And when he'd whistle, I'd get out and come back to him. And the reason he trained her that way is that when the RCMP showed up to take the children, he would tell her, go to the hay. And as soon as the RCMP left, he would make that whistle to bring her out, and they were hidden. There was a birth here in Toronto years ago, or in Ottawa, where the Indigenous woman said, my grandmother stood behind the curtain when they would come into the room to check me. And when they would leave, she would come back to my side and work with me and keeping me calm and making me feel good. There's nothing like a grandmother. But she was one that was kept apart when the RCMP showed up to take the children. We've been taken alive so many ways. The 60s scoop, the birth alerts, that whole history that we're all well aware of. And so the healing that's necessary to re-empower the women, to bring them back to their well-being, is really the work of healing that midwives do. I've always believed that the midwife is the cultural actor that is capable of making this transformation in society. That the matrilineal, matrifocal, matriarchal consciousness is alive in our doing of these skills. And so many of the women in Akwesasne who I've been privileged to support wake up and build from the knowledge they carry as individuals that is situated within the culture. And I just, if nothing else, want to leave you with that knowing that it's alive. The knowledge never left us. We just stopped doing it. And now we're doing it again. So in the spirit-aligned leadership work that I've been doing for the last 6 years, I began to see a pattern of these elder Indigenous women that we support with financial resources to express the beauty inside of them. They're elder women. And for 3 years, we would support them. And they would come up with knowledge that fits everything that's written in the natural and core competencies of Indigenous midwifery. And so I realized the next cycle has to be focused on midwifery to move forward the vision of an Indigenous midwife in every Indigenous community. We're at a really special moment in society and in our history. And to stand here among these newly minted midwives, understanding what it takes to stand at that doorway of birth and of death, I congratulate you. I look forward to the 30, 40 years, 50 years ahead of you. Look at my white hair. I used to have hair like yours. And it's possible. I remember being a young practitioner and realizing from a woman who gave birth, she took a small painted turtle rattle in her hand as she began to push her baby out. And that turtle rattle belongs to the seed blessing rite in our longhouse. We dance that at the time of spring when we share seeds across the house. And the women come in and weave through the house like a bean growing around the tall corn stalk with the squash leaves, keeping the weeds from growing. We call them the Tumpekwa, the three sisters. And I realized that the ceremonies in our longhouse and the ceremony of birth are all a holism that we need to pay attention to rebuild our cultures and our communities and our families. And we've come a long way with it. And so when you're feeling exhausted, when you know that you can't show up, but you need to show up for yourself, you're lucky because now you're not alone. There's always a way to create relationships. The last thing I want to share is this concept I've been reflecting on called murmuration. You all know and seen the birds make a beautiful movement in the air, or seen on Disney Channel or nature shows the fish murmurating to protect themselves from sharks. And I've been fascinated by this pattern of nature. And I want to share with you that when I went to a place in Wyoming called Mato Tipila, Bear's Lodge. It's a geologic formation that comes right out of the northern Great Plains. And there was a interpretive plaque describing that from the forces of the cosmos working on the top of this huge formation, Devil's Tower, of course the Christians call everything sacred, Devils or Hell's Canyon. And so these pieces would fall off, and they were always in a hexagram, 6-sided, and that's like that all over the world. In Europe, some of the coastlines have these huge pieces that fall, and they're 6-sided. The cells of a honeycomb have 6 sides. Soap bubbles will form 6 sides because the 6 in nature's patterns is the strongest and most efficient use of the available resources. So back to murmuration. I began to realize, why doesn't the bird over on the end fall after crashing into everybody else? How do they know? Because of the 6. The one in front of you, the one behind you, the one to your right, the one to your left, the one below you, and the one above you. That's 6. And that's in your social network, your practice network. Those are the ones that you'll know how to go. You'll know because you're in that protective space. And that murmuration of each of us has a network of 6. And when you identify who they are, whether it's in midwifery or in your immediate family, in your community, you're going to get stronger because the 6 is the strongest pattern in nature. And when you live inside of nature's patterns, intentionally connect to the Mother Earth and the Father Sky, and in our indigenous ceremonies, it's all about that kind of dynamic interpretation based on what's going on in nature. And of course, a healthy pregnancy and birth is like that. And it's true what you said, that birth is the easy part. The hard work is bringing that baby through a cultural pattern that brings out their who they are, why they're here in this world. And so the skills that I carry as a midwife go beyond the clinical to this indigenous knowledge that comes from throughout the hemisphere, because for that time, since the 60s, we've been intentionally creating unity among indigenous people of the hemisphere and meeting with indigenous people in other places. And really, the Haudenosaunee have been doing that since the early 1920s, when Descahe from Six Nations went to Geneva, Switzerland to talk to the nascent League of Nations. So I feel such joy to be sitting with my sister midwives of the National Aboriginal Council of Midwives, and just jubilant that this work continues in the beautiful young faces that I saw today and this evening. So with that, I really am so happy that we've arrived at this moment. And Carlene, thank you for all the good emails and support that you gave me in coming this evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to ask, I'm not sure if it's going to be Natalie or Kendra or if it's going to be Shirley, wants to present to you a very special gift. This is a photo op. We just want to thank you so much. Thank you for coming. All the way from Six Nations area and Buffalo and all of the traveling that was involved. Thank you. What we're going to give you was hors d'oeuvres, right? You're going to get a 7-course meal tonight. So enjoy. I think that Rachel was planning on doing a slideshow for us. Okay.
Have your attention for just a minute. So we're gonna have to observe on just by the windows. Everything is getting set up right now. There's plates on the end close to the door. So we're just gonna have to slowly, orderly make our way over. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. See, my shirt still works even from alarm and PSW.
I kind of gotta go. Sure you don't have to go. Everybody goes. Hi, folks. Congratulations. I just want to say that we missed you tonight. We are so proud of you. You've launched a brand new career. You're going to be change makers. I hope you really take to heart what Gudgy said, because I did. The ancestors were speaking. You're here for a purpose. There's going to be a ripple effect for generations to come. And the communities that you're going to affect is not just going to be catching babies. It's going to be a teacher, an elder, an auntie, a friend, a mentor. And I appreciate you. I'm so honored that I had a small part to play in you launching into your career. So congratulations.